please provide evidence for at least the last 3 years that this has been completed.
Yeah. At this point, I swear somebody's just flopping on the floor. Please make this stop.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 451 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle. What's up, Donna?
Well, this and that and the other. There's so much going on, dude. I mean, It's like I can't get enough work done because there are too many news stories to keep up on or updated information that may impact what I'm working on. It's fun. It's not boring.
Yeah. If you're like me, you can't get any work done because of work being done.
Yeah, there's that.
Yep. And today's going to be one of these times we're going to discuss something you do often, which is vetting vendors.
Yes. And how surprised they are at what's happening to them.
What? You vet me? Oh yeah, we're good.
You mean can you believe what I got from my client? How am I going to answer these? I don't know.
Trust me, I know what I'm doing.
It's just like
yeah, kind of need a little bit of proof. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm on the vendor side of this, and so I get it. I feel the pain when these come in because, it takes time to do it, which I don't mind the vendor vetting as much as I mind the insurance questionnaires I get every year. Just drive me nuts.
Yeah.
Because they do ask questions I don't want an answer. Like, here's one I just recently did. Tell us the name of your client who gives you the most money.
What?
I'm serious. Tell us what your largest client is paying you every month. Tell us what the average client is paying you every month.
Well, that's kind of like we learn this so that we can decide what you're going to pay us.
I mean, I know that's exactly what it is, but I don't mind telling them the money piece, but it's like, dude, you don't really need to know my clients' names.
No, you don't. If I was your client, I would expect you not to be handing that information out.
It's like, I don't like this. I don't like that you're asking me that.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing what happens with that.
They'll probably cancel my insurance.
What do you get to say? Look, I don't mind telling you how much. I just don't want to tell you who they are. It's none of your business.
Mm-hmm.
And I check with my client. My client is like, I don't need my name going on that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But these questions that you pose, that Carden poses, are not like that. But they do catch people by surprise. And they do make you do some homework.
These aren't even ones that we submitted. These are ones that people got on other that are not dramatically different than what we would ask. And that we've been telling people be prepared to answer. So this is not Carden questions. These are questions that vendors brought to us and were very surprised that their clients, and oh, by the way, these are our biggest clients. One came with a small one and said, well, I'll look into doing that stuff then if this is going to start happening. Then their biggest client came with one. They're like, okay, yeah, I got to do that stuff. And the other one said, I think I got to do that stuff, but then I'm too busy to do that stuff. And then, wait a minute, I've gotten these multiple questionnaires. I got to do that stuff. And then another one comes and says, it's just a vicious cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But, I mean, I don't know. Have we possibly told people?
Yes, we
have. In a
have.
past episode, hey, vendor vetting coming.
Yeah. Well, let's do our quick, and then we'll get into our vendor vetting. We got a couple of things to deal with here first. Business.
Sure. Yep. Let's take care of some business. First of all, we want you to go over there and smash the like button, smash the share button, and smash the subscribe button if you're on YouTube. So give us some love, leave us a review, please. We appreciate those. But secondly, the Prosec Boot Camp. Ooh-wee. I don't know. Do we got room for any more? You going to squeeze them in there?
Well, anybody that signs up now, and this is being recorded a couple of weeks before the boot camp, this will come out like less than, was it like 9 days before the boot camp, 10 days before the boot camp, something like that.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this the day it drops or shortly thereafter.
Yeah. So even right now, we're still working out, could we take in any more? And it's basically any new ones that come in, we're going to have to wait list them to figure out space requirements. And there's a lot going on with that, which is great news. Mm-hmm. It's great news that we're getting that kind of turnout for the boot camp. It's also great news that we'll make the space for everybody who's signed up so far. That's not a problem. But we'll see what happens. So it's pretty tight. If we announce another boot camp anytime soon, just remember that.
Yeah. Jump on it.
Yeah, because I really need to. The team told me to post on the website that you would be waitlisted at this point. So
yeah, and typically we do these once a year.
The live ones, yes.
Yep. So don't think we'll have another one in a couple of months. It's not going to happen.
No, these take a lot out of us. So.
Yeah, I'll be sleeping the rest of the week after that's over with.
I usually have a very quiet weekend. Although last year I got to go to a really cool place in Louisville and have a very wonderful old bourbon.
I'm sure you enjoyed that.
It was spectacular.
Okay. All right. So if you're interested, head on over to PricesecBootcamp.com and sign up. If you can't make it to this one, we'll have you on the list for the next one.
Yeah, we will. Or some other way we can torture you. Anyway, so we do have to explain that we did have a little bit of an email issue.
No, there was no issue.
The technical issue was I wasn't getting them, didn't notice I wasn't getting them, and then, there's David. So,
yeah, because I'm supposed to notice for you that you don't get them.
Well, you're supposed to know, you're supposed to ask who's responding, should you?
Okay.
Oh, there's that.
Yeah. I see how this is all coming back to me. So let me just take responsibility and move on.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Can I have another? Yes, sir. Can I have another?
This is our joint podcast. The emails are a joint podcast email. I am not the secretary. Anyway.
Yeah. It was just move on.
We're moving on. At least he took it. All right. So, but I went backwards, and the good news is the immediate questions that we would want to answer are all fairly recent. So I guess I'll start with the oldest one is from March 8th. So still within the same month, this will come out. Yay. Is from Jennifer that said, in regards to minimum necessary, when we refer a patient, we typically only send what is related for the reason of the referral. Great policy. What do we do with the specialists that want 6 months of notes that may not be related to the reason for referral? Is that a violation of minimum necessary? So all other things equal. Now, I preface this by saying if the patient has provided specific restrictions on sharing, then you got to follow those first. So make sure there's no specific restrictions that the patient has asked for. Then you got to deal with those on a by-case basis. Assuming all things are equal and there's none of that, when you're sharing between providers, the provider making the request can ask for whatever they think they need to treat the patient. And if you are doing what they think they want and the patient is sending them anything they want, you're meeting your obligations for minimum standard, the minimum necessary standard. So it as I recommend, if you're on the receiving end, you don't want any more because every bit you get is data you have to protect.
Yeah, but are they really looking at it that way?
No, well,
They're probably looking at it. Just send me everything because I don't know what you got.
exactly. There's a lot of people that do that, but now that's data I have to protect. So if I'm asking for it, if I'm on that side of the equation, I encourage you to be specific about what you need so that it limits the amount of data that you have to protect.
All right. So get on the phone, Jennifer, and say, tell me exactly what you need.
But that's for the receivers. As Jennifer's role is to provide what the provider asks for and encourage them to ask only for the minimum necessary. And if you've provided the minimum necessary in your opinion and they come back and say, well, our opinion is we need more, then you're still under your minimum necessary obligations because you're responding with the request from the provider and the patient has okayed it. Okay, so here, David, I know that you'll love reading the March 11th question from Tom.
All right. So, Tom, long-time listener, and you guys have such creative ways to teach and share the information. Awesome podcast. My question is for Donna. Okay, fine. Be that way. And he writes, on numerous occasions, you mentioned showing your license, but not for copying. Do you have a list of quote unquote patient's rights? And please provide link to prove you got to prove it. Good job, Tom.
Yeah. We like that one. If you made David dance, he does that funny head wiggle every time he thinks of that, and I love it. So now we'll have to have that little piece, that video clip out on YouTube. Anyway, so first of all, very interesting question. I love it. And first of all, there is a patient bill of rights. And I included a link to it. One of the ones, National Institute of Health's version of it. Been around since the 90s. It's great stuff, but it doesn't have anything in it either. And I get why people want a copy because they can confirm it's my face, later. Is that really you? But if you want that, take a picture. Okay. Because you have that capability in the systems, just like you do the ability to scan. But basically, Tom, what you're doing is what they would do is ask me to prove the negative. My question would be in response, I need you to prove that there is a regulation that requires me to give it to you to make a copy, and there's not one that I know of. There is none. So I can't prove there is not one because there's not one. That requires me to give you a copy of my driver's license. I can show it to you to prove it's me. I get that. I don't have a problem with that. But that's just one more thing I got to worry about everybody having a copy of. Now, granted, there's plenty out there already, but every one I don't give out is one less that I'm sharing. And same thing goes for Social Security number. There is no regulation that says I must give you my Social Security number for medical care, nor a copy of my driver's license for medical care. Zero. So I cannot prove the negative, but if you can give me, that's what my question would be, prove that I need to, because there isn't one. So I prove what the law says, not what it doesn't say, because that's kind of hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prove what I didn't say.
So at first I'm like, well, how am I going to, that's proving the negative. What am I going to do? So there are some things, but the real question is, can you prove what regulation requires me to do it? That would be what I would need to see before I would start doing it. That's why I don't. So there you go. That's the best I got.
There you go, Tom.
I can't prove there's no regulation because there might be one, but I don't know where it is. But then we get to the one that came in today that brought to our attention the email issue.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben, for,
Yeah, where's Ben's question? You want to read Ben's question, David?
Yeah. So Ben writes, long-time-ish listener to the pod here. Can you speak to the inclusion of SAFER, SAFER, guides attestations in the Medicare Promoting Interoperability Program requirements beginning last year, and whether this might be affected by the arrival of the HPH CPGs.
So I can speak to it. I don't know how well, but I can. So the safer guides are it's kind of like it's the current where the evolution of meaningful use requirements have kind of gotten to is a good way to look at it. There's MIPS involvement and all this other stuff. But anyway, they're set by the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT, which is a office within HHS. So that means that the HPH CPGs will have an impact on the ONC. And the ONC is responsible for privacy and security as it relates to health IT, not as it relates to, providers and all of the other stuff. So it's a direct relationship, and the safer guides and the attestation, the self-attestation, and blah, blah, blah. As far as I know, and granted, this is not where we spend a lot of time, but I think that for the most part, those were set in 2016 as far as what you had to attest to. And then, it takes time for all these other things. For the most part, those specifically relate to EHRs and other health IT programs and how you use them and the data that's in them and how they're protected. And if there is any change, it'll be out. Oh, by the way, ONC is on the hphcyber.hhs.gov website. It's one of the big umbrellas of cybersecurity. So they put that right underneath their announcement of CPGs. So when there's a change to the attestation, my guess is there will be certain requirements from the CPGs, particularly if they become mandated, which we expect portions of that will become mandated. Will it happen tomorrow? No, because remember, these are voluntary. Whereas the attestation requirements and the safer guides and the implementation, interoperability, all of that stuff is a legal requirement. Yes, it will eventually, because all of this is going to become less voluntary and more mandated. And at that point, you should expect to see them. So getting started now would not be a bad idea. And hopefully that answers what your question is about how the inclusion of that will come into play. So if not, send a follow-up, Ben, because we will be watching the emails now together.
All right. So there's your big A to the big Q.
All right. And then we do have a quick HIPAA say what?
Yeah. Let's follow up on something we talked about last week, which is Change Healthcare. Still a thing.
Yeah, it's still going on, folks. Well, we started talking about it, I think, right after it started to happen. So we'll start saying when it's not going on so that when you're listening to this months from now. But anyway, the AHA released a couple of things that I thought was interesting, but probably was happening when we were talking with Gary, recording the podcast that we released last week. And it's a survey about the impact and the disruptions in hospitals that the American Hospital Association did. And there's several interesting things in there. We've got a link to it in the show notes. But the thing that the most important one right off the top, 74% of hospitals report direct patient care impact.
Ooh.
That tells you right off the bat that this thing is going to be a major, major impact. It already is an impact to the industry, but it's going to have a major impact on where we go next. And all these cybersecurity things that were already in play are going to just be both exacerbated and what's the word I'm going to speed up? Anyway, accelerated due to the impacts of this thing. And there's a lot of other information about the financial impacts, which will also come into play. I expect to see come into play about what happens when the ability to move money back to the providers, because the providers don't get paid until after the fact. They don't get paid up front. So that's a big problem. And then the other thing they released is it's in one of their special bulletins that is the answer to a lot of the breach notification questions they're getting about this. And they make some really good points. And the big thing for us to get out is you better get your BAAs in order and figure out how far down your supply chain this Change Healthcare thing goes, and make sure all the BAAs are in order. Because there's going to have to be notifications. There's no way they can't. There's impact to the availability, the integrity and availability. They violated HIPAA with those issues. It's just what caused them is how big the violation is. But the confidentiality of it, I don't know how it could be as bad as this one is and there not have been exposure to data. Plus, we just talked about they're claiming they still have the data. So get your BAAs in line, understand who's responsible for notifications, because my guess is they're going to be forced to make the notifications themselves, which is going to be massive. But that means your patients are going to hear about it from them and maybe not know it's you. So be prepared. So kind of go get that.
Yeah. So if a cyber incident has a direct impact on patient care, that would mean that cyber care is patient care.
Cyber safety is patient safety.
There you go. Bam.
Mm-hmm. Got to work that in.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you are taking the Hippocratic Oath and you believe in what you're doing is for the best interest of the patient and you care about them and their safety and all that, then cybersecurity is absolutely one of the things you will take seriously. If you're not, agreed. I question it. I question your patient care. I question your bedside manner.
Okay, let's move it on to the topic of the day. Vendors surprised by vetting.
Yeah.
And I went back because, first of all, we've talked about it a ton with people because we're at the trade shows and all the conferences and you meet the other vendors and you talk a lot and you try to tell them, this is what's happening. Oh, no, I think we got it covered. Oh, no, I'm sure we got that covered. Oh, I think we're fine with that. I'm sure we got
seal. We have a seal.
Don't even go with that. But we keep saying there's more. You don't know what you don't know.
Proven every day.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know. And you're going to need to prove these things, not just say, I equate it to, are you my friend? Yes or no? Do you do HIPAA? Yes or no? And they were fine with it. Yeah, we do it. It's not that anymore. Right. Just like you talked about, we've talked repeatedly, and we had that long discussion with John about the vetting process.
Yeah. Now, here's what shocked me is you went back and looked, and the episode for Ready for Extreme Vendor Vetting, I thought that was 2 years ago.
I know, right?
It was 6 years.
6 years ago.
Oh, my gosh.
300 episodes ago.
I was shocked. I was like, wow.
I know. I was like, that can't be. No. Episode 150.
Wow.
I know.
Well, we are the longest running podcast of our kind.
Yeah. Well, we're the only one of our kind.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah. And so back then, the thing that we were talking about, and it was a presentation at a conference where, they were talking about, that they're kicking the tires and saying you got to be this high to ride the ride, that kind of, it was fun. But the whole point we thought at that time was, everybody's seeing this as extreme vetting. And we're like, are you ready for this extreme vetting? Because that's where we got to go. What we were talking about vetting then is like child's play compared to what we're seeing now. But then I said, okay, if it was that long ago, we know that HICSCRIM came out. And when it first came out, we talked about it. So I go look for it. And our episode then was HICSCRIM should wake up vendors.
Yeah, that was last year, right?
No, 4 years ago, episode 247, where we suggested in that episode, and I continue to suggest that you go get HICSCRIM if you're a vendor. You get HICSCRIM and you write up all the details of how you should, here, I meet these vetting requirements. I can provide the proof. And then you've got something to respond and say, is this good enough? Which, in some cases, I would say that it would work. I again have no proof, but that was the Health Industry Cybersecurity Supply Chain Risk Management Guide version 1. So, wow, if it was 4 years ago, I kept looking. Then I went and I found that we had 6 steps for vendor management, episode 317.
Oh, we're getting closer.
From August 2021. A little closer. It was in this decade. That it was when version 2 of HICSCRIM came out. And it does take you through the 6 steps, and it's very specific, and it shows you even more so how to relate it to the NIST cybersecurity framework, which will also help. But then again, that was 2021. What have we done? Okay, we did vendors in your breaches in 391. We're finally getting closer. That was the beginning of last year. So it was over a year ago now that we put it out because it was January 2023.
Oh, wow.
And in that one, we talked about how much impact supply chain breaches were having on the sector. And I think we even mentioned that we had talked about many times the importance of you being prepared for vetting. In each of those, we talked about how often, but I'd never gone back and looked.
So all this to say is there shouldn't be any surprises by vendors being vetted, right?
Not if you're listening to us, and it's not just this podcast. We're meeting these people and having one-on-one conversations. Like I'm already, talking with you saying, you need to be prepared for being asked additional questions, and I highly recommend you go check out HICSCRIM. Okay, great. What's fun in a tiny way of the I told you so way, but frankly, in our line of work, I hate the I told you so moment. There's always a part of you that's like, I told you so, but really and truly, I told you so that you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Not so that I could prove I was right later. I don't want to have to do that. But we get these calls from these vendors who are now like, wow, this happened, X happened, Y happened. I'm going to have to do that stuff you talked about. And then that's the initial tear the Band-Aid off moment. And then they go through the denial stage of, well, that's a lot of work. I don't have time to do that work once we tell them it has to be done.
And you didn't have time to do it before either. So
no.
Now's a good time to start.
Yeah. And then they get these questionnaires. And some of them, we hear from them, well, we got the first one. And it wasn't too bad, but it made them say, okay, I'll sign up and I'll commit to doing the work. But I'm not going to do the work post haste. And I'm not going to do the work in on the schedule you gave me.
Yeah, but here's the thing about it is if you have OCR jump in and they put you on a corrective action plan, you have no choice. And it is going to be at a time frame that is going to be much tighter than what you're going to give, I think.
Well, and they're still living on, well, we're not going to be the source of the breach and we're not going to have an OCR investigation. Fine. But that's not what's the impetus for their change. That is not it. It's the vetting questionnaires that they're getting from their vendors have gone from, will you be my friend? Yes or no, to I'm going to need to discuss exactly what kind of friend you will be. And I need proof of it and certification from other people that you have been that kind of friend. It's that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more intense. And now it really is. So when we talked about, are you ready for extreme vetting? We're seeing it really get to that point. That's when they're coming back. Oh, it's my biggest customer just sent me this. I need to answer this. And guess what? they want me to answer it within the next 2 weeks. That's way more stressful than an OCR investigation. I don't care who you are. Because if you go back to your client and say, I'm going to need a little longer to answer this, that's a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's like the person that's in charge and that would know for certain all the answers is on vacation for 2 weeks. Okay. That's not, what most people can say. So then they're in the place that I really didn't want them to be. And that I told you so moment, but I tell you, the one moment that does really get under my skin, that is failure to plan on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. You got 2 weeks to answer it. I told you for 2 years to do it. So that is frustrating. And we do our best to be able to help people through that and we review what they do have. And then we say, look, if you're going to sign up for this contract, you're going to commit to do the work. We have a solution, but we can't do it in 2 weeks.
Right.
But what we can do is document that you have signed a contract with us to do these things. And we'll say that we're going to do a complete review of your program and provide recommendations and assistance in any areas that need to be remediated. Boom. We will sign a letter from me that says you've done that. If you sign a contract, don't ask me to give you a contract and sign it.
And
but not
backdate
sign the contract. Yeah. So it's that kind of stuff. But we do that, but then you've got to do the work. Just like when we do that for somebody that is under investigation by OCR, comes to us with the same scenario, just like you mentioned, and we have to do the same thing. What we tell them, though, is if I get asked again and you haven't done the work, I'm not pulling out all the stops again. I'm going to say you haven't done the work. That's on you. And that is, that is the nature of the beast. I can't make things magically appear for your business. I know how you can make them. And I know that even when you do, when I look at some of these questions that are coming out now, wow, I'm not going to be able to help you go prove that you've had the program the entire time you've been doing business with them, which could cause problems.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you that this is happening to tiny little companies that have very little PHI involved, not much at all, but they're having to confirm that they're doing certain things for security because they have some PHI and they have access to it. That's it. It's done. And then we have much larger ones that are in the same position that have a ton of PHI involved. So you got it across the board. And it's not I'm too small or my data's too, it's every vendor. And they're in that original episode that we talked about. It even talked about the importance of, even if they don't do PHI, but they're connecting something to your network, you need to be vetting them. Maybe they don't have to comply with HIPAA, but they need to be secure. With that being said, I thought it would be great, David, and I'm going to hopefully not cause you any heart attacks. I pulled random questions from multiple ones of these. This is not all from one upstream asking the questions. It's not all to one vendor, but it is a really good example of several different questionnaires, what they were asked to provide, and it's several different size and, it's multiple business types and sizes. So this is not by any means saying, oh, this is something that will never happen to you. These are across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And from different questionnaires, you learn different things. And especially if you do a tiny job for a big company, you need to be prepared because these things are getting hard. So we're just going to hit on a few of them.
All right.
see what you think. So the one I put at the top, do you have a formal information security program in place based on a standardized industry framework? If yes, what is that framework?
Good question.
So can you say that HIPAA is a standardized industry framework? No. And technically, you can't say that HICCUP is a standardized industry framework.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are following HICCUP, I can say that HICCUP is a guideline published by the joint work of HHS and the Health Sector Cybersecurity Coordinating Council, Cybersecurity Working Group. Got all that out in a breath. And it is based on concepts in the NIST cybersecurity framework. Okay. That is a great answer to that question. I would hey, I'm proud I can write that answer. So it's good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just doing HIPAA, you're going to go, no. Your only answer is no.
Yep.
Then you have provide evidence of the last completed risk analysis, summary page or other evidence, but we do not need the detailed report.
That's proprietary information, Donna.
They don't care. And by the way, I'm not going to hit on all. I put several in here, but I don't think we have time to go through them all. So go to the show notes and you can see all of them. And I've highlighted the things, the statements that make sense and that should get your attention. Here's another one. Provide evidence that employees, and I like this, including management, receive security and awareness training, including periodic updates. And then this is separate from annual HIPAA training.
Yes,
Awesome.
It is. I like how you had annual HIPAA training. That makes me itch.
Yeah. Well, but they're saying HIPAA, if I'm only talking about what the law says, not my policies and procedures, not cybersecurity, none of this stuff.
Right.
Fine. I can just remind you what HIPAA says. Annually, that's fine. It's the other stuff that's not going to do it again. Okay, then I like this one. I'm like, holy crap. Then this kind of goes to what's your client names. Provide a list of all the business associates, subcontractors that create, receive, maintain, or transmit our PHI in order for you to fulfill your obligations under the service agreement.
Pachow.
Okay. First of all, now I've got to know which ones were okay, because I can have some. Now I have to ask the question, would my IT provider be part of what it takes for me to provide, meet my obligations under my contract? Lots of things to ask there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you perform security assessments of your vendors? As you're getting a vendor security assessment.
I'm going to send them this.
I thought that was kind of funny. And it's like, but I hadn't so far, but I'm sending them what you gave me. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this part before because, you can send these to Google or Microsoft all day long. You're not going to get a response. Mm-hmm. And so you have to go to their site. And oftentimes they'll have information specifically for this. Mm-hmm. But you have to go and you have to do your own research and you have to go through their published content and pull that information out. They're not going to respond to your assessment that you send them.
No, and don't, when we say research, don't just do a quick Google search. Is Google HIPAA compliant?
Yes.
That will not be successful for you.
And pull some article from 2007.
Yeah. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Anyway, let's get back to, here's one. Provide a description of how you are prepared to respond to a privacy and or security incident. Include the following. Details around your ability to notify impacted patients and regulatory agencies.
I'll just post it on Facebook.
Names of third parties you are contracted with or will leverage to assist in your response effort. Names of any third parties you are contracted with or will leverage to assist in your patient and regulatory notifications.
Ooh-wee.
Boom. So don't tell me, first of all, I'm a business associate, so I don't have to worry about the breach notification rule. That is a huge misunderstanding. We're going to call it a misunderstanding because somebody somewhere told somebody that.
Mm-hmm. Now, that needs to be in your business associate agreement beforehand, though.
Well, your business associate agreement says that you will provide notifications, yes. And you got to assume that this particular vendor who's sending this questionnaire includes in it that you will be responsible for, if it's your fault, you'll be responsible for making notifications. But again, that gets into the importance of your, understanding what's in your business associate agreements.
Yeah, you better be reading those things.
In both directions. The ones you're signing upstream and downstream.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big problem often. Now, I like these. The next two, though, made me think of you. That's why I included them. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, I usually like to say, are you sure you want me to notify your patients? And then they're like, no, we'll do it.
No, I just want you to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I say. I would recommend that you decide what they're going to say and then have them pay for it. But the next two, I saw them and immediately thought of you. The first one, do you use a commercially viable OS? Please advise the OS or database backend that is used.
Oh.
So for people who wouldn't get that tricky little question, what do they mean when they are talking about commercially viable OS? Aren't all of them commercially viable, David?
Absolutely not. They are not.
I think it's a good way. Can you go buy Windows 95? No. No, you can't. But then there's more to that. But I mean, for the obvious things, if I can't buy it now, then I can't even begin to claim that it's viable, number one. If I can buy it, but I have rigged it in such a way that it's no longer anything like what I bought, I've purposely broken the security on it. Now I got a question, right? Is it a commercially viable OS?
I mean, I would argue, and this is just me, but I would argue that if you're not using the professional version of Windows, you're not using a commercially viable OS. You're using a home viable OS. Now, I'm sure that's you could probably get away with it on this assessment here, but I'm just saying from the standpoint of using it in a business environment, especially healthcare, I want that professional version. If for no other reason, because I want to be able to use BitLocker encryption, which is included with the professional version.
Well, and you're always going to see better security on a professional version than a home version. I mean, that just makes sense.
Yeah. But I have seen people that also are trying to use free operating systems. And there are bunches and bunches and bunches of free ones. And some of them are good, but are they commercially viable? And here's the thing is you might not be using them on your PCs, but they might be somewhere.
Like, I don't know, on the database back end, which is why they're asking.
Well, I know even, like, for example, if we put a backup device in your practice, it is using a non-Windows operating system. It's using Linux to run on. Now, it's commercially viable, but it's not Windows, and it is running in your environment. Did you know that?
Yeah. Ooh, did you know? That's the thing that'll wake them up in the middle of the night. They'll hear you going, did you know that, Dad?
Yeah.
Okay, now the next one is one of your favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a backup procedures in use? And everybody goes, sure, we're backed up. What is the RTO and RPO? What if you asked Change Healthcare 2 months ago that question? Would they be able to say? Well, first of all, David, go ahead, do the RTO, RPO, and why you don't buy backup.
You should never buy backup. You should always buy the ability to recover your data. we recently saw something about that. So a vendor actually had that on their website. I sent it to Donna, and basically that's what they were saying. We don't sell backup. We sell the ability to recover your data. And I was like, finally, somebody's listening. I've only been saying that for like 8 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, so RTO is your recovery time objective. RPO is your recovery point objective. So the difference being is your time objective is how long is it going to take you to recover. Your recovery point objective is what point in time can you recover back to. So can you recover back 15 minutes ago, an hour ago, a day ago, a week ago? All those are recovery points.
Mm-hmm. Recovery times could take months.
It could. Now here's the thing. But here's the thing is when IT walks in, I'm going to say, I can have you back up and running in as little as 15 minutes or an hour or whatever the case might be. So that potentially is your recovery time objective and your recovery point objective right there. But you need to ask a lot more questions about that, because quite often I've had people say things like, I can't afford any downtime. And I'm like, great, this is what that costs. And they're like, you know what? I can afford some downtime.
Exactly. And that's the importance of it.
Yeah, but you definitely need to have those conversations to understand what that looks like. And here's another dirty little secret, is that most people never test that to really understand what that looks like. Mm-hmm. Because, I can tell you all day long that I can recover and this is what it's going to look like and all that. But if we don't test it, at least in its environment that it's in, then we're just speculating. Now, if all goes well, then great. I did exactly what I told you it would do because somebody else told me what it would do. But otherwise, we need to test this. Let's see what this really looks like.
Yeah. So that is just a tiny question, right? This one, the next one here, this gets back to, I can't make you prove you were doing stuff that you said you were doing before if you weren't doing it. Mm-hmm. Have you ever completed a security risk assessment? That's a tricky one if you're supposed to be a HIPAA BA. Was it done internally or by a third party? When was the last one completed? Was a remediation plan put in place for any areas of risk noted? Is there a plan to have a follow-up assessment completed to validate the plan is working as intended? At what frequency are security risk assessments completed? And then at the end of all those questions, please provide evidence for at least the last 3 years that this has been completed.
Yeah. At this point, I swear somebody's just flopping on the floor. Please make this stop. Flopping on
the floor. Okay, so here's another one. Do you have a fully executed BAA on file with all clients and vendors with access to PHI or PII?
Yes, move on.
But the fully executed is the key. That means I have both signatures on file. And the number of times, we struggle making sure ours are.
Yeah.
That they have both signatures because it gets sent to us and we sign it, and then they have both signatures. And if we don't make sure we get it back with both signatures, so
or
that happens.
What sucks is when you can't find it. You're like, I know we have a BAA with them. I cannot find it.
That's why we have a documentation management system policy as the beginning of your policies and procedures.
Yep.
That's why we have Comply Assistant, because I can track them. But we had to start making sure that not only did we have a copy, but did we have the countersigned fully executed copy? Mm-hmm. And we sign BAAs, but only in case we need to, our normal work, we don't have to do that. But in the event of a data breach and we're helping a client, we don't want to have to go through a BAA process for us to help them evaluate a data breach where we might have to see data. So we could make the argument that we're a BA and move forward, but I try not to be in that world unless we have to. All right, this one is the one that I know would make people go, er. Can you demonstrate administrative, physical, technical security controls are in place in the work environment? Most people would say, yeah, go, those are my safeguards under HIPAA.
Mm-hmm.
And then it follows with a simple statement. This will be validated on site.
Ooh.
We're going to come and look at it.
I'll send you pictures.
Do you have a BYOD policy? If so, please share or provide location within the other requested documentation, which we'll get to in a minute, because that one goes with this other one. Is teleworking only approved upon assurance of the secure configuration of the home network, including secure wireless, a firewall, anti-malware, and use of encrypted remote access sessions?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time it's, well, yeah, I just make sure they come through a VPN. They don't have to do anything else. I don't have to worry about any other security. They're kind of like, no, what if there's a keylogger on there?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. This is a tough one to do because it really boils down to the firewall thing, because you can't go into every home and like, here's $1,000 firewall. So you have to really do your job to protect the endpoint better, and just understand that, you probably can secure the wireless in some cases, but the firewall itself, you just got to see what you got to work with. But,
well, they're saying that you have assessed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And that you figured out how to mitigate the risk.
Right. But you
And
can't
that's
just
what
say,
it's supposed to be.
Right. I agree with you. The point is, you can't just say, no, they work from home and they're good to go. Or the one I saw one time was like, they're using their home computers, so that whatever they use for security is up to them. And I'm like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah. We have a vendor that helps do data entry in our accounting software, and I don't approve of their. So the person that works on ours has different software because I don't approve of what the other clients allow them to use. It is who we are.
Yeah.
Do you perform due diligence, including a security review prior to granting access to your systems and or sharing PHI with an external provider? If this provider is a cloud service, do they have a current SOC 2? But how many people are like, well, we're sure they're secure?
Yeah.
Everybody uses them.
Oh, gosh. I hear that all the time. Yeah.
Which kind of goes in line with the other one. Do you perform periodic security reviews to ensure your policies and controls are being followed by contracted resources? Do you know what's in your client's policies and procedures? Well, I don't.
What's in your wallet?
Do you have a documented process for notifying customers of potential compromise to data or services, including timelines for that response? Does your business have an incident response plan to take responsive action after a security incident or breach occurs, including forensic investigation, securing of evidence, notification of authorities, etc.? I love it when an including says etc. That right there, our incident response plan is, we got this. Our team will jump on board. Great. Do you have a timeline for that? When are you going to notify people? What timeline do you have to notify people? How are you going to notify that? How are you going to communicate with your workforce, your downstream, your upstream, all of those? You know what I'm saying. And now I get to the final one, which is one of these that asks for several different things. But I love the very first page. It's like, if you skip the first page and just went to the questions, you're in trouble. Because the very first page says, documentation requests. Please include standards and procedures as relevant and available to demonstrate your security program. Where your policy and process structure differs, please indicate in our detailed questionnaire where subject matter may be found. It is understood that some policies may be embedded in a broader one. If so, for specific questions, please annotate the appropriate reference. And they didn't even select all of them. So here we go. These are the ones they had to give. Data classification and security policy. Data flow network diagram. Third-party connectivity agreements. Repair and maintenance policy. Patching and upgrade policy. Risk management policy. Information security policy. Breach response and notification policy. Information incident policy, business continuity policy, third-party audit reports and attestations, privacy policy, acceptable use policy, encryption policy, password policy, logging policy, network management policy, antivirus, anti-malware policy, staff security / HIPAA awareness policy, teleworking remote access policy. Those are the ones they asked for. Good news is they didn't ask for the rest of them.
Yeah.
These are the policies they did not ask for. Software development, secure build and hardening, change management, clean desk and clear screen, which I don't know why they didn't ask for that. Asset secure disposal, asset secure reallocation, physical access, mobile device, access control, and access review.
Ooh.
You don't have to do those.
Okay.
What a relief.
So what you're saying is I need to call Carden and get on the list. This is a shameless plug in the entire episode for what all Carden does.
We help people get through this. And are we perfect? By no means. Are you supposed to be perfect? No. Remember, perfect is the enemy of done.
Mm-hmm. So are there any pharmaceuticals you provide along the way to help me get through this?
We'll meet you for a bourbon tasting. That's all I got.
It'll probably take that.
But, I mean, like I said, these are not questions that are being sent to Google.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, these are being sent to small companies.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like you mentioned, get started on it now, because you're right. You're not going to get this information together in a few days, probably not in a couple of weeks.
Well,
So,
and what we're seeing there is nothing compared to what it used to be when we started talking about this years ago.
all right.
So if you're rolling the dice thinking it's going to get better,
Tis not.
it's not. Well, you got the CPGs and you got all this other stuff happening. So go evaluate where you are and just pick any of those questions. Because again, those came from multiple vendors. Multiple vendors' clients. And I mean, I'm doing some that aren't even HIPAA related entities. They're not even in the health sector that are requiring these kind of things where we're helping people.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of the thing. I had a conversation the other day. MSP said, I've got the opportunity to take on a healthcare client. I don't have any healthcare clients. So should I go down this path of HIPAA for this one healthcare client?
No.
So I'm like, no, I wouldn't. However, it's going to get harder and harder for you to not touch either HIPAA or something that is very, very close to it. So you may find yourself doing this kind of work anyway. So you have to, figure it out for yourself on that. But I'm seeing it more and more across other industries. And I've talked about this before, but even if I decide I'm only going to do accounting firms, well, guess what? There are a bunch of accounting firms that are business associates. So bam, you're right back in HIPAA.
Well, and now they're required to do a certain framework. I mean, I'm helping friends that are single, provider accountants.
Yeah.
And it's insane that, it's one person and I am helping them document their cybersecurity program.
Yeah. Well, they have the new IRS guidelines for cybersecurity they're having to do. And we've had to go through those with some of our financial clients. And the thing about it is I told these guys years ago, at some point, it's going to be something like HIPAA that's going to touch everybody. Because my accountant called me one day when this came out. And he's like, hey, I'm sending you these IRS guides. You will write.
That's somebody that knows you. They knew they needed to go ahead and make that plug. Let me just get it over with. David was right.
Yep. 'Cause I'm gonna throw it back up in your face.
Oh, my.
All right. Good episode for today's. All right, folks. If you're like me, whenever you first heard things like this, you probably, had to breathe into a bag for a while, but it'll be okay. Just start somewhere. It'll be okay. Just get it done. All right. And if you need help, call Donna at Carden.com.
Carden HQ.
Yeah, let's get it right.
Those Harman Kardon speaker people, for some reason, want that domain name.
They should sponsor our show. All right. Make it happen, Donna. All right, folks. So hope you like this episode. Be sure to share it out. We appreciate it. Join us again next week when I'm sure you'll learn more, and maybe you won't have to hyperventilate while you're listening. So remember, for Donna and myself, that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
Help me with hip-hop. Let's get it right. Protect your patients day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with hip-hop. Let's get it right.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.